Hey everyone, this is Satsunami from the Chatsunami podcast. On behalf of everyone here and to the lovely listeners at the SP Film Viewers podcast, I just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul. And we are
SP Film Viewers.
Last Christmas episode.
Is that so you don't get like copyright for starting to sing a song that's like iconic?
I guess so. So yes,
Don't be sounding so happy about it.
last Christmas episode of 2024.
Okay, I get the message. Oh god, next time I do this when it's Halloween, I'll be like, oh, it's the last one. Well, that'd be good then, better it?
Anne is a Patreon pick, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Was toying with like what the options could be because I was really struggling like what can be a good pairing to pit against each other. Initially, before the streaming services had sort of gifted us with ideas, it was going to be two like musical ones to sort of round off the year, as we did start with a musical at the beginning of the year. So
basically, you said, "Here's what you could have, Sophie, but you're not going to have that."
but we don't want to give you that.
All right, okay. You know I'd have liked that.
So went with That Christmas and Red One, which both have come out this year. So I thought, let's go for a modern one that obviously kind of in the films that are sort of trending this
Current,
yeah.
Okay.
That was the reasoning behind it in the end. So
yeah, of course it was.
And apparently the patrons have saved us from a disaster with seeing Red One, so
That's
we're
good.
watching That Christmas.
Wow, is Red One meant to be really bad?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, patrons. Maybe they'd have done it if they'd have wanted a bad reaction, but maybe they'd been nice because it's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
So That Christmas, the only thing I know at the moment is Ed Sheeran's done a song on it.
That's right. Under the Tree.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm aware of, and obviously it's an animation.
Mm-hmm. Netflix.
Original?
Yep. Sort of seen a trailer of it. Not sure on the art style as such, but maybe that'll grow on me as we go through the film. But it looks obviously more like child friendly.
Yeah.
Really.
A little bit of an Arthur Christmas.
Yeah,
vibe.
I was going to say that it kind of already from the get go kind of has that sensibility about it, really. But what's most interesting, really, got me out, obviously, when it's coming with from the creators of whatever, it said that Richard Curtis was involved in it, obviously, from who's done Love Actually and About Time stuff. So I was like, okay, well,
it should be good.
Interested in that capacity as well. So, yeah, and it looks like, going through on a quick Google, that there's quite a few cast members of the voice actors who sort of say British legends in the most part. They've got Bill Nye.
Always.
Jodie Whittaker. Catherine Parkinson, who's Jen from
IT Crowd.
IT Crowd. And a few other people as well.
Some good voiceovers then.
Yeah, well, recognisable, I would think. So it would be fun going through that, going sort of play a guessing game.
Whose voice is who?
To remember them, yeah. So yeah, should be quite a nice, easygoing one for the season.
How long is it?
Only an hour and a half.
Oh,
of course, because it's kids' film after all. So yeah, quite looking forward to seeing what this has to offer.
Intrigued. Probably at some point, Red One will be something I'd consider, just because now I'm being told not to. A part of me thinks, how bad can it be? But it might be really. I have looked and it has got The Rock and it's some snowmen and big bears. I think the humour I'd hate probably.
Yeah, looks very cringe.
Yeah. So maybe we've got a flight lead with this one. Right,
so we'll be back very shortly with our thoughts on That Christmas.
Hello, this is Cindy Brainerd from the Hypno Wellness Podcast, and I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Ah, poor Danny. It's hard making new friends sometimes, isn't it? I always think that Christmas is a bit like an emotional magnifying glass. If you feel loved and happy, Christmas will make you feel even happier and more loved. But if you feel alone and unloved, the magnifier gets to work and makes all those bad things bigger and worse.
And we're back, having watched That Christmas.
What do you think of the title?
Well, the title I looked into is based on the book series that Richard Curtis and the illustrator Rebecca Cobb had worked on together. So there's, as I understand it, there's 3 different stories interwoven within this film, which kind of makes sense because the titles are The Empty Stocking, Snow Day, and That Christmas. So, I think the title is mainly just like encompassing all of it, really.
Yeah.
In a sense, in that regard.
And the way that it says That Christmas makes it sound like it was a bad Christmas.
Yeah, like that storm that kind of affects everything, really.
I remember that one bad Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paul, what did you think?
It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but obviously I think it's more just for it very much feels like it's a home release, streaming service release. I couldn't really envision this being at the cinema, if that makes sense.
I get that. Mm-hmm.
It's not always necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's just an easy way for people to access films at home these days, and the market kind of calls for that, and then it still gets the popularity, and obviously subscribing to a service to access and counts as money for profit for the organisation and all that. So I say visually, still not super keen on the characters, whereas what I did like was how pretty the location shots were. The scenery, it still takes place in a town in Suffolk called Wellington-on-Sea.
Oh, maybe that's why Ed Sheeran did
the song, or his roots, yeah.
Well, it's technically Halifax, but then he moved to Suffolk.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense then, a little bit more. Or
they just thought, oh, this will be a big smash for the...
True. I feel like Netflix have thrown a lot of money at this. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're as big as Amazon now. It's like, oh, we can just throw any celebrity and pay them God knows whatever because we're Netflix, we're big. Mm-hmm. So might as well. Netflix has given them a big budget to do whatever they wish. Mm-hmm. I don't mind the actual drawings of them. I think it's really simplistic. But I think from your background, I think you are one of those to be more particular on character designs.
Yeah, they're not super ugly as such, but
they're not. They're just plain.
Yeah, nothing really stands out super well from them, because I even looked seeing the illustrations done by Rebecca Cobb, but they look nothing like the iterations for the 3D models that they've got here. So it's like taking some creative liberties, I suppose, which I don't know is because the director, this is his first film as well, is Simon Otto, who was the head of character animation for How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
So maybe there's kind of influences of that in things. So, but thinking about it by proxy, then I should I don't really like How to Train Your Dragon's people characters, but there's something a bit different about them.
I think it's more the shading of them. They've got more expression towards them, and the way that they're the rosy cheek. They've got more colour in their cheeks.
Yeah, because it's cold time of year. But I don't know. There's something a bit more forgiving about the design of Hiccup and everybody in that. I think they meant to look more proportionally
they're more
cartoony,
detailed
aren't
as
they?
well, though. I think Hiccup's hair is a lot more.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. There's certainly fur and hair textures that look.
Yeah, but I think just crispness and sharpness. I think this one's a lot more softer and looking natural and more simplistic. which is not an issue. But like you said, though, the scenery is the way that they've done the snowfall and the certain things that they've done.
The lighting of the shops and
is magical.
Like,
it's just really pretty.
Like, and just the fact that the film is set in this location, which is, you know, not like, oh, this is London. This is like a super recognizable place that because it feels a bit more like it's, I say, almost Nordic in the sense, obviously, like Viking like community, but that again, it's probably like tying back to the like How to Train Your Dragon type of location. Which,
well, you kind of already said that when you saw the characters. You were like, Danny's already Hiccup, you were saying, and then Sam came on, and you were like
Astrid, because he's like. Because he's, it's the love of his life or something.
And she had the pigtails as well, like, already, like, and you were like, oh, and then he's got a bit of messy blonde hair as Danny, as the little boy, compared...
No, he's got brown hair.
Oh, it's a blondie brown. He's got brown. Like, Hiccup's like browny black, isn't it?
Yeah, dark brown hair.
Yeah, this is more like an ash blonde, like my hair. I think, though, for this, it's one of those where you can put it on and it's a cute little vibe that you're getting. I think it does give you the emotions, and I think knowing that it's got Love Actually behind it, and it does actually make an appearance as well.
It's a little jab.
And also the fact that it's got 3, like now you're saying about the title, it's got 3 stories in one, which that's kind of what Love Actually always does as well. So it did feel a little bit like that, like you've got several different families that you're kind of growing and understanding and learning about. Which,
and they're all connected in some way.
Yeah, that's Love Actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's just Love Actually somewhat in a cartoon version. They've got a Christmas play. Which
is unconventionally different from, you know...
There's no lobsters.
There's like sprouts and...
Chickpea.
It looks like a potato.
Yeah. There's obviously Mary's got a watermelon, she's taking selfies, and then the watermelon gets shown and, you know, tries to embarrass her. I think there's a lot of different side stories happening, which actually makes you grow fond of the story and the characters. Danny is outrightedly my favourite one.
Because he sounds northern.
He sounds northern, but bless him, his parents have just recently divorced and they've split up, and his mum's having to work extra shifts, obviously, because now she's having to man the house by herself and provide for her son. The dad's nowhere to be seen. He's shacked up with a 25-year-old dental nurse or something. And he's been spending a lot more time on his own, so he's feeling lonely. And I always think around Christmas, that's the bit where that makes me sad the most. It did say in this, and I think it was very well put.
An emotional magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more happy you are and you've got your loved ones around you, the more that you will love Christmas. And the fact that you are by yourself, it feels even more like a lonelier time of year because everyone else is going to be celebrating with their loved ones, and it can make you feel worse. And they did even bring up like a high suicide rate, I'm sure. Or was that something else we watched?
No, you're thinking of Gremlins.
Ah, that's what it was. Yeah, it's merging into 2. It's because I fell asleep in the middle of the Gremlins. I know, how can you? But to be fair, we did have a late Christmas party that took us into 2:00, you know, and it was the next day, so I hadn't had enough sleep. That's my excuse. I would never normally fall asleep on Gizmo. But I think it's one of those things where around the holidays, or when did I become American? Around Christmas.
Yeah, we are in UK on this one, as opposed to...
I don't know, it depends on what life throws at you. Like, if you lose a loved one around Christmas, it hits harder, and I know that sounds stupid. It's going to hurt either way.
It doesn't sound stupid at all.
It hurts more when it's around Christmas, and you can always remember when that person was no longer there. Whereas, like, if it happens some point at not a rememberable time of the year, it's still going to hurt, but you're not going to remember it as much as that specific timepiece is captured or preserved as much. I think that's the key part of this film, where it shows, like, obviously you've got Danny with his mum, you've got the head teacher who's quite lonely,
which we come to learn later about. It's, you know, like why she's kind of like she's almost like feared by everyone.
She reminds me of a Miss Trunchbull initially. Like, she's got that stature, she's got that.
But she never really come across as super aggressive, but she's just got like an authoritativeness to her.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But actually, you know she's got a softer core and a softer inside. And in the end, she's there for everybody and brings the troops round, and she's the one that everyone relies on and looks up to, like, when something goes wrong. I think you've then also got this little weird combination, which is like, I want to say it's 3 families. So you've got different ethnicities as well. So you've got like a Asian mum with her daughter. Then you've got like a mixed raced family.
Yep.
2 daughters. One is quite like a teen and the other's like a toddler. And then I'm missing one of them.
There's just the White family.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is he just the... Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
she's the blonde-haired one who's the woman off IT Crowd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the boy that looks like Gene?
Yeah, the black, dark-haired one. And he keeps bumping into...
He's a bit like Gene's character from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
And they seem to all, like, help one another out and look after the kids, and they kind of all have Christmas together. I don't know if they're, like, related or if it's just,
I think
like...
it's just close friends, because, you know, they spend a lot of time together, and the parents are going to a wedding on the day before
Who has
Christmas
a wedding on
Eve.
Christmas Eve? I'm sorry if you do, but who would? No one's going to want to go
No.
to that. Like, I'm sorry.
Be realistic, yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's an expensive time of the year. Like, I know it's cheaper for you to book your wedding at that time, but it might not be around Christmas because obviously you're having to pay people who should be on holiday.
Okay, yep.
So you're going to have to pay more. So it's just stupid. So then we have a snowstorm. But then we've also got another family, which is Sam, Charlie, and the parents. So that's like your kind of 3 stories within them. And I think for me, Danny's story is the one that I connect to the most. I think it's the most emotional one. It's the most raw and relatable. I think the ones with the group of children and the parents, that's more like kids just enjoying themselves and having a good time at Christmas without the parents. It's like kind of like a rip-off Home Alone.
In a way, yeah.
But there's no burglars. And then for Charlie, I think this one with Charlie and Sam is showing, like, actually just because Charlie's acting up, she's actually doing everything she's doing for good, but people are perceiving her as bad. And I think that's, like, the interesting moral of what, just because you think it's bad or wrong doesn't actually mean the intent is.
There's no maliciousness behind it or anything like that. With those 2 characters who are twins, I like the fact, obviously, I think it's representing, obviously, Sam is wearing a green for good, and then Charlie's wearing red for
like a rebel.
Rebel, yeah. Obviously, that's also holiday colours anyway, so
yeah,
kind of fits nicely with that.
It's quite strange because I reside more with, like, Sam's character. Like, I, as a child, would have been like, oh, I'm nervous about everything, I'm anxious about everything, or don't want to be bad because, like, I don't want Santa to think I'm naughty, and always wanted to be good for my parents. Like, I tried to be the perfect child, I guess.
And also the fact that within this, it's very much apparent that Santa is a person that they essentially all believe in, and obviously he's, like, integral to this as well, like, for obviously giving gifts and everything like that. And with him, he's like, oh, there's a storm brewing, and he's got to...
Only one reindeer as well, like, I don't know, all the rest of them had red flu or nose flu or whatever it was, like that. But I know he came on the scene and Santa's Scottish, and I just went straight away, why has he only got one reindeer? And then you kind of said, oh, well, if you listened, like, it does tell you.
Yeah.
But I'd already jumped to that, like, that's not how Santa would ride his sleigh. This should be at least, 12 or 11? 13 or 12, actually. No. Oh, gosh, we've got a quiz. Pub quiz. Normally this comes on.
I'm sure it's 9, isn't it? Including Rudolph.
I don't know. Who's a Christmas expert here? How many rain? It's 9 including Rudolph.
Yeah.
8 in general. They should have, unless it's a foggy night. So I do quite like Santa as a character. He's not your cliche Santa.
Because he's Scottish.
Well, no, it's not that. I think it's more just that he's got, like, a little bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh. He's like saying, and I think he's, like, got to a point of where the snow's kind of got so bad. He's lost all his reindeers. He's only got one, but he still wants to do a good job. But at the same time, he's like, oh, I'm going to rush and take all these sacks down one chimney. And then you're looking at Rudolph like, shut up. Well, no, Dasher. Is it Dasher?
Dasher.
And I think that's kind of like I think he's got, like, a little bit of banter about him, a bit more wit than, like, just a jolly old man.
So yeah, I think that's kind of refreshing in that sense.
And even Dasher the reindeer is sassy as all. He's like, can we just go home now? And especially when Santa thinks, right, okay, I won't give Charlie a gift, she is naughty. And then he realises, like, actually, no, she's not, because she gave all her presents that were on her bed because it was the wrong
Twin
that had got them. She knew they were for Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being naughty, she was like, well, no, I want Sam to have them.
Yeah.
And then Santa was like, right, we're going to have to do a U-turn and go back. And Dasher was not impressed. He was like, come on, we're nearly done. We're nearly home. And I think that was kind of shows like an employee just being like...
Yeah, but I remember that the fact that I'm sure like he made that statement, but then shortly or another sequence or something, he says like, "Oh no, I've still got some juice left in the tank or something," as if like, "Oh, he's changed your tune." What's?
Yeah. And then I think as well, it was also while he was like looking at the window, "Come on, we don't have all day, Santa.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get going
to Finland or whatever."
Yeah. So I think that kind of scene made it more, even though it was a sad thing thinking that Charlie was naughty, it did bring some humour.
The thing with that though, I think it's more of there wasn't much of a impact with that part, really. Like it was, like, that's the sound I might prefer it if she didn't have, not that Sam didn't have anything, but the fact that Charlie didn't have anything, because it'd be like, oh, it's sort of like a sobering lesson, like not to, but I guess for the purpose of the story that she's like, oh no, she's actually been good, but in her own way, then it's rectified it. But yeah,
and I think it helps.
It's kind of like just done very quickly. I think is what I mean by that. Really,
you mean she turns over to being good quite fast? Yeah.
It's not like wake up the next day or something, or like realize it. But then I guess that again
I think
wouldn't
that's
work.
Because for Sam, she didn't want Charlie not to have anything, and she'd feel guilty that she'd received and Charlie hadn't. And I think Charlie was actually wanting to do everything to make Sam actually happy. And I think they were both trying to do the same thing, but neither one of them communicating with each other. I do think, though, it's one of those things where if you did have a child, it would help putting this on as like an educational piece of how good can you be around Christmas time, so that you're not on the naughty list. Because obviously Charlie does quite a lot of naughty things. Like she shaves one of the dog's hair for because she's Joseph.
In the play, yeah.
She ends up giving one of the dogs a treat, which is the same dog that she shaved, but then she's puts loads of snow on the owner. But actually it turns out she's doing that so that Sam would be happy because the dog never gets a treat. She frees all the turkeys so that they don't get ate because they've been cooped up and caged, and the guy is charging you an arm and a leg and ripping you off because you can't get any other turkey from anywhere else. So like I feel like she's one of those like activist kind of like, people that she's wanting to get the world and do right, I guess. But you can perceive her as the bad things that she's doing, but really they're actually good for her, if that makes sense. And like what her reason behind it is good. And I always think, well, as long as you're doing something out of the goodness of your own heart, even if other people can't interpret it, or you feel like it's right for you, then that's what you should be doing, I guess, isn't it? So I think the weakest story is the parents getting stuck.
With do you mean with because they are stuck, or also inclusive of the kids who are just like, oh, we've got free reign of the house, we don't have to do the chores and do that kind of stuff. It's kind of just the...
Yeah, I think that's more for the kids when they're watching it thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if parents weren't here and we could have Christmas without them.
Do it our way, we'd have to go on
a
walk.
Even though the little girl, I forgot her name.
Evie.
Yeah. Wants to go on a walk, and obviously that's kind of gets to a point of traumaticness at the back end with hide and seek going terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's kind of got the little bit of a lesson, but then I feel like the teenage girl kind of gets the brunt of it initially, saying, oh, you've lost Evie. It's her fault because she didn't lock the door. But it's like, isn't it Evie's fault because she went out of the door? I know she's only a toddler, but...
If I remember correctly, Bernie says to the Gene look-alike, have you made sure to lock the door kind of thing. So I thought he did do that, but maybe he didn't lock all the doors or something. Obviously, there's a lot of, like, the parents of Bernie and Evie were like, oh, we'll put too much responsibility on it, but she's like, oh no, we'll be fine, kind of, and everything like that. But obviously there wasn't expecting a snowstorm to cause.
And I think, to be fair, Bernie had done really well with how she entertained all the kids while they were on their own. And
yeah, because that could, in a normal situation, that could have been played a lot worse. Like the kids would be, especially if you were like really upset, crying or anything like that. But I think it was well downplayed in a, oh, come on, guys, let's all like have a little bit of fun. We've still got presents and everything like that and all that kind of stuff. So that still occurred, and that's when they made the best of the situation. But even though us as the viewers knowing, there's not really going to be, Evie's going to be fine out in the snow, it's not actually going to find, they're going to have a twist where it's like, she's got frostbite and died in the snow.
Taken by the tide.
Yeah, something like that. So even you said that, it's like, I'm not worried about it. He should be fine.
I know it sounds bad, but it's like one of those films where they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I'm not concerned. I think for Danny though, he and the teacher, I feel like that story I felt more of. So like bless him when it was like a snow day, but his mum had gone into work early.
And she didn't know she didn't get the memo. And
she's a nurse, so she needs to go in anyways, no matter what, really, to be there for the people she's caring for. So she didn't tell him, and he's like, oh, I'll go home. And he's the new kid, like they've only just moved here recently, he's not really got any friends. And then the teacher's like, come on, we're going to teach you a lesson. And he's like, oh, why? Everyone else is having a snow day. Why can't you just send me home? But obviously he'd be on his own. So she was like, right, well, you can't be. So I'm going to teach you to death. And you can tell he's really bored. And then she gives him a break. And I think that's where like this, kind of like the holdovers a little bit. They have a little moment where
there's that connection, because I don't really get the thing with that, how he wouldn't know the physics of how to build a snowman. Like, obviously, to have it bigger at the bottom, because, gravity is just going to pull the mass down.
But when you're a child, you don't know these things until you try them. Like, then now he'll know.
But I mean, he's of an age where he would have seen.
Well, you'd have thought, but maybe he hadn't built a snowman. Maybe wherever he lived before,
there was no snow. He never had any snow.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, on TV and anyway, nitpick that. But obviously, that's a lesson for him to be, practical physics, and obviously, again, it builds that connection and with the teacher and everything. And from that, it kind of reminds her, sadly, of the times with her. I'm guessing it was her husband.
Yeah.
In the war and everything like that. They had that moment where they built an igloo and a little cozy time, but now that's long gone, unfortunately. So I think that's about around the time when the two of them sort of like separately reflecting on that, and the Ed Sheeran song comes in, because I thought that's not really an end credits song, is it? Because it's not very cheerful.
Well, to be fair, they went with Coldplay instead, which it's a bit plinky plonky, but.
Yeah, it was a slightly bit more upbeat
but not
hopeful.
Much.
Yeah. So,
I think the Ed Sheeran song though was quite touching with the way that the animation was done, like showing that actually it doesn't matter, like the Mariah Carey song, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Like, it is the people that make Christmas. Not the presents are nice, but they're not essential. It is your family.
Yeah, because I remember the Danny says at that point, it's like, if I had a choice between Santa giving me presents and my dad being here, I'd rather take my dad. Because I think that is quite like,
that really hits. That, like, for a kid, that's like, what, 9, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
And it's just like, actually, they shouldn't really be thinking that. They should just want presents.
Yeah.
But actually, he's like, oh, well, I just really would want my dad here. And I get that. Like, I understand that. I think for me, coming up with a family that's been parted and divorced, I think it makes it more apparent. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it was the best thing that happened to my mum and dad to actually not be together. But as a child, you literally have this foursome unit, and now
it's broken up. And
and it's hard, and it's got tension, and it's not nice.
Yeah, and sad as it may seem, I think it's more apparent these days as well with families as well now, isn't it? I'm sure there'll be more recent families who might have been gone through divorce, and this kind of occurs, and then it's like, oh, am I going to see my mum or my dad this Christmas kind of thing? So it's quite touching in that regard, I think.
I think as well, like, depending on, it can go either two ways. Like, for Danny, I feel like he's never going to probably end up having that relationship with his father because he's just not making the effort.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be alternative years. He'll be with his dad and then his mum. I just don't feel like they're going to come together and all be back in one roof. I do think though, for the animation side of it, what was really nice was like how Santa was looking through like the rooftops, like windows. Like, so the roof was covered in snow,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd have like a little gaping hole of like you seeing Danny in bed like with his mum. And I thought that was like quite an artistic choice of like looking through a window that wasn't actually there.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the same thing with the camper van. The way like when they were stuck on the ice,
Yeah.
they did like a shell of the camper van.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
But actually they were still inside it,
Yeah,
but then you could
you
see
could
the outside.
all the
Yeah.
people within it, what they were doing.
Which was a quite nice creative touch that they put on
just
it.
to emphasise what they're all doing. Yeah.
But I think for Danny and the head teacher, I think the relationship they grow is really lovely. And like even on Christmas when his mum has to go work again and look after somebody else's mum.
Because it's the lighthouse keeper, and it's because it's implied that this will be potentially her last Christmas, because of her age and everything like that. Which is so it's like, and she says to Danny like, well, she's the only one who likes me, kind of thing. So it's, like, would you want to be? What was it? I can't remember the wording exactly, but something like, want someone to be around with that you actually like around Christmas or something like that, as opposed to someone you really hate or something.
And I think that's kind of another thing where people do, families, like, even if they have rows and stuff, they might come together, but you're like, oh, you're not really grateful for spending time with them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas she's like, well, at least we get to pick who we spend our Christmases with. And I think then Danny's like, well, I'm bored, I'm on my own, I'm lonely, I'll go see what my head teacher's doing. And offers like a little olive branch.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of turns him away initially. But then in the end, she comes a full 360 and she's like, yep, right, we're going to save your parents on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to create an igloo and make it nice because it's actually harder on your mum than it is you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're a child, you really don't understand adult life and you just want them to be there. Like, I think sometimes if we had a child, I'd worry about like, oh, there's a nativity and like, what if I can't make it or couldn't get the time off work? And then that's going to break their little heart.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it's breaking mine too, but I've got other commitments that I can't get out of. And I don't think they understand that at that age.
No.
So I think that's... Have I missed anything?
That's the long and short of the story, really.
It is quite in-depth, actually. There is... I think... I love the Love Actually, because they do refer to it as an old film, which did make me feel old. I guess it's old, but I still feel like it's more current compared to other Christmas films we've got.
Yeah, like Miracle on 34th Street, or the very first one, or even the old Christmas Carol, or even It's a Wonderful Life, or anything like that. But that's not to say that's been used to death, but I guess it's kind of upkeeping like what kids would see as like an old film. But then again, I'm thinking, shouldn't be letting kids watch Love Actually anyway. So there we are.
To be fair, Love Actually is only like 21 years old. I think
only 21.
Well, compared to like, for example, the Muppets Christmas Carol or like Scrooge.
That's not that old though.
Well, that's 30 odd years old.
Yeah.
Like it was, I think it was released when I was born, so it's like at least another 10 years older.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit like it's not that old, really.
I think Richard Curtis put that in as like a dig at himself, really, because obviously he's worked on that.
But also, I think as well, if you think about it, it's one of those where actually Love Actually, get it, is
all around.
No, it's one of those films where I think it's become a Christmas classic, and I think in the next 20 years, what can you say has?
Here's a question: would you think this is deemed a Christmas classic?
No.
But you would say like Holdovers is potentially, but unconventionally, but more so. Yeah. See, I don't know that is to bring it back to when we'd said on the pre-ramble about Arthur Christmas.
No, that's a Christmas classic. That gets me. It like pulls at my heartstrings.
Right.
I think there's just more moral, and I don't know. Like, I feel like if we'd focus on that Christmas and it was more just Danny, I think I'd probably get a little bit more out of it.
But you did find you catching you sometimes going.
Oh, I think crying. I'm just the way I am this year. I think you know, like when you could do like a certain year. I think this is just my cry year, like
right,
just the year where I'm just a soppy git. I just need to get a hold of myself. I'm sure, like if I'd have watched that last year, I wouldn't have cried one bit.
Right. Okay.
Depends on what your emotional state's like.
I suppose.
So I think that's what it is. I think it's there, but like I probably, if I'd have watched Arthur Christmas,
Mhm.
I'd be blubbing compared to just a little, like, oh, I'm whelming.
Okay.
I think Arthur Christmas, I don't know, when did Arthur Christmas come out? Is that a Netflix original?
No, that's not. That's like an Aardman production, which talking of studios and stuff. That this is by a fairly new one, Locksmith Animation, and the only other film they've done before this one is, I don't know if you remember the film Ron's Gone Wrong. The little like pale blue pill or whatever he is, and he's like malfunctioned. Like everyone's got one.
Yeah,
He's got the dud one.
Arthur Christmas came out 2011.
Okay.
So still, like...
So is that, but then thinking about that, is it because you've maybe seen that a lot more, you've had more time to...
Yeah, but then I think there's always something that gives you to want to come back. Yeah. And I think this is where I'm like, how much do I love it to want to come back?
Right. Uh-huh.
Not saying I'd never watch it ever again, but there's so many Christmas classics. Would it fit in there? And do I have enough time in December to put this in?
To warrant to putting it on, yeah. The schedule of that is kind of like, yeah, you have certain ones that are always like staples.
Yeah.
Some of them you swap out every now and again. But this one, whether it be, let's put this on again.
I think that's the issue. Like, The Grinch for me is a no-brainer. Love Actually every year is a no-brainer. Scrooged, Muppets Christmas Carol, Home Alone, obviously. You know, like, those are... Even like Arthur Christmas is now and again. It's not every year, like, I must watch it.
Yeah.
I feel like Tokyo Godfathers probably would be like an every year now must watch. Like, I feel like that could tip into there. Mm-hmm. Is this on that level of standard? I think if you have a child, it would be one of those that...
In the early years, yeah, you probably
would.
Because it's encompassing of that, and it feels like that kind of, the peril, as it were, is sort of there, but it's kind of like, which often kind of resolved quite swiftly. And
I think this reminds me of what I'd have grown up with being the Santa Claus, like with Tim Allen. It's kind of like the telling you from good to bad, showing you the magicalness of Santa and Christmas, and if anything, this has got more morals to it to show an adult version, like, so that adults can appreciate it. But compared to The Holdovers, I know it's obviously you can't really compare the two, but
no, very different.
It is the same Christmas element, like Christmas is in it. So
yeah, I suppose.
And what's wonderful about this is because neither one of us have seen it, you get to go first in scoring, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, the only other thing I want to bring up is bringing it back to the How to Train Your Dragon notion, which it's weird that Netflix kind of put that in brackets next to the director, because I thought, without looking into it, it's like, well, no, he was the head of character animation, not the director of. It made it sound like, he has worked on How to Train Your Dragon, but not in the sense of it being the director of that, which I should have known, really. But from that inclusion, when, like, from the get-go with Santa and the reindeer in the snowy blizzard, and it very much sounds like, this is like, I wonder if it's the same composer as who's worked on How to Train Your Dragon, and lo and behold, when we got to the end, it did say John Powell. I was like, oh, right, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, good to that I picked up on that element. And I think, like, this, there's certain, like, in that, with certain shots, it very much feels like it's the same kind of thing, like, like a bit of parable. It's like, we're getting through this, we're going to be all
like
right, kind of thing.
Toothless, flying. And I think the Scottish accent as well of Santa, because obviously, like, with How to Train Your Dragon, there is like
it's not the same person,
but it's got a Scottish element to it. So and they're all like
inspired the coastline and everything like
No,
sense, so
definitely.
But overall, I think it's kind of good that, I don't know if, like, it's gone up a little bit from my initial score from just by talking about it a little bit more in our conversation here. But I think I'm going to put it at 6.5.
Okay. That's realistic. I think from looking at what we've watched this year, Christmas wise, obviously Edward Scissorhand and The Holdovers would be like my favourites. I think the least, which breaks my heart, is the Muppets.
Merry Muppets. That one.
Never thought I'd say that in my entire life. I actually do think I have to score this higher than the Muppets.
Yeah.
So I was going to give it a 7.
Okay.
I agree, it's got some wonderful elements. I just don't feel like it's tailored towards children. And I think it's great for children. And if you've got a child and you want to put it on, they'll love it to bits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would then bring your fondness more towards the film, knowing that your child
Others enjoying it, yeah.
loved this film growing up.
Yeah.
I think because obviously we're not there yet with having children,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take it as an adult watch.
Sensibilities of a first watch, yeah, based on that.
And
yeah.
I think that's why it's only a 7. I can't really say what I could ask for it to improve. I just don't think I've got the connection as much. Maybe if the more I watch it, I'd enjoy it more. I do think it's going to be never like I'll never watch it again.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be like next year I'm going to put it on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit where it's like, compared to certain films like Love Actually, every year, that's why it's a 10. Every year I want to put that film on. Obviously it has a close connection between me and you as well, because it's the first movie we ever watched.
Yeah.
But it's also got a good moral behind it. And I think this is trying, and it's just like a dumbed down Love Actually version for children. Because really, to be fair, you've got Danny and Sam. Well, the girl is she called Sam? Oh no, the boy's called Sam in Love Actually, isn't he?
Yes.
And you've got the American one that says All I Want for Christmas Is You, and it's kind of like that little romance.
Yeah, but there's no run to the airport.
No, they're in. But you know what I mean? There's like the stumbling, there's that kind of little bit of...
I think that's just general, like, boy awkwardness to a girl. Like, I kind of like you, but I don't know what to say. Kind of.
I never know. I don't think I had that when I was really little, that the boys liked me, and if they did, they never did anything about it. So yeah. But I'm quite gutted that this is Christmas over now. Obviously, it's not over, because obviously you've got the actual day, but and we will be watching plenty more films to come, like we've mentioned. But obviously, to review wise, this is it.
Yeah, that's it. And then
end of the year
end
now.
of the year review as we normally do coming up.
I think we've had a really good positive. Like obviously, we did take a break in November, but I do think overall we've watched some really good films. So I'm excited for that.
To reflect back on what we've covered.
I've grown a lot in my films this year. I think with what I've appreciated. So I think there's some top contenders in there, and it'll be interesting to see if I remember them all.
We'll do, yeah. No, so look forward to going over that.
I always like it because they always make that one like more chilled and relaxed, and it's not as streamless as these ones.
Yeah, if only you knew what I edit out of these. It's like worse stuff.
So thank you, Patrons, for picking this one.
Yes.
I didn't hate it compared to the red one.
We would just absolutely rip that to shreds, I bet.
We probably would have done. It'd been the lowest Christmas scoring one I can imagine.
That would be the worst Christmas ever. To end with the year with that.
Yeah. So
but then at least it might have been comical, but at the expense of us just
ripping into it.
Right. Yeah.
It will be one probably at some point, I can imagine. There's not going to be many other Christmas films coming out. And at some point, however long this podcast, we might have to touch it at some point.
Yeah.
But thankfully, we missed the boat this time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do want to become a Patreon, obviously you've missed their Christmas special, but that doesn't mean you can't be in time for January's Patreon pick. So you can pay £1 or $1.50 to become a Patreon, and that's a month. And you get to pick a movie once a month and shout outs every week. And the link is patreon.com/SP Film Viewers. So go hit that Patreon button and become part of his family. So we might as well read them out, mightn't we?
We might as well. So thank you to Alex and Shani, who are at Desperately Seeking Username and STOG respectively. I'm
going to thank Mark, Nico for dodging the bullet and putting very, very clear comments of reasons why not to watch the red one. Thank you for being so kind to me at Christmas. Normally, I know you guys would want to put me through it a little bit, so I'm grateful. So if you're wanting to listen to some of our podcast friends, you can do. So we've got Mark, who is from 100 Things We Learned from Film. We've got Nico, who's from the Good, the Bad and the Weird podcast. And then we've got Ben from Push Pull Health, previously Film Vloggers.
We've also got Gren, who is at @CGren_draw, Jonesy and Emma at Weight Loss Jonesy, and M_Hayton, respectively.
And then we've got my mum, bless her, who's going to watch Red One by herself.
She can let us know what whether she enjoyed it or not. But...
Well, to be fair, she did start that Christmas and she stopped, so you know where I get my movie choices from. So it's a bit questionable if she does stick through Red One.
And of course, if you want to check out some of our other episodes, then you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. Check those out. And also be sure to leave us a 5-star review over on those platforms as well. Be very much appreciated.
It could be our Christmas gift for us SP Film Viewer podcast. So the other thing is, obviously, if you want any more Christmas content, still got near enough. Well, when this airs, probably a couple of days,
but still,
you can still follow us on social media. So we are on several platforms. I'm going to try to do it right. So we've got Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Twitter, and we're under the handle SP_filmviewers, and we've got a random new one.
Yeah, we've got Blue Sky as well, which is SP Filmviewers, all one word, and of course. We've also got the YouTube as well, which we're trying to push as well. So
yeah, and Paul did leak, like, obviously, if we get 100 people following, then you might see my wonderful face in the new year. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. Watch that space. But please follow, link, subscribe, like, heart, whatever you do on whatever ones you do.
These days, yeah.
It sounds so old. Is that everything? Have we done?
And that's everything. Yep. So all I've got to say is. Just thank you, everybody, for listening throughout the year, and we'll be bringing you our end of the year episode very shortly, of course. But
I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas, is able to spend time with their loved ones or whoever they want to be spending Christmas with, and eat lots of food and just feel very blessed over Christmas time.
So, thank you very much for listening once again, and we'll speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.